Goodbye Things by Fumio Sasaki. Picture a tiny Tokyo apartment. Books are piled so high they look like they might topple over at any second. The floor? You can barely see it. There's a guitar gathering dust in the corner, once representing a dream that never quite happened. The closet is bursting with expensive clothes that never fit right, and hobby equipment from phases that came and went. Each item is basically a ghost of someone this guy hoped he'd become. Empty beer cans and half-done projects are scattered everywhere. This wasn't some movie set. This was actually how Fumio Sasaki lived every single day. Here's a guy in his 30s, with a decent job as an editor, but inside, he felt like a complete failure. He was constantly sizing himself up against everyone else. Friends with their fancy condos and perfect families. Random strangers driving cars he couldn't afford. He was miserable, literally drowning in his stuff, feeling like his life had hit a wall. He was a hardcore maximalist, totally convinced that more stuff equals more happiness, just like so many of us. Then something clicked. He stumbled onto an idea so ridiculously simple, yet so powerful that it didn't just transform his apartment. It completely rewired how he thought about happiness. He went from that chaotic disaster zone to a space of beautiful emptiness. And here's the wild part. In all that emptiness, he finally found himself. This is the story behind Goodbye Things, a book that's quietly sparking a revolution. Not with some loud declaration, but with a gentle whisper, asking one profound question. What if happiness isn't about getting more, but about letting go? Today, we're diving into Fumio Sasaki's journey. We're going to dig into why humans are basically hardwired to accumulate stuff, and how our possessions can actually end up controlling us. By the time we're done here, I promise you'll understand a powerful, completely counterintuitive secret to finding freedom, focus, and genuine joy in everyday life. This isn't just about cleaning up, it's about discovering the life that's been waiting for you underneath all that stuff. So where does a story like this actually begin? It starts with a feeling I think we all recognize. That nagging voice saying we're not quite enough. That if we just had that one more thing, the latest phone, that cooler jacket, a bigger apartment, then finally, we'd feel satisfied. Fumio Sasaki lived with that feeling for years. He thought his possessions made him interesting. His bookshelves were supposed to scream, "I'm intellectual." His antique camera collection was meant to whisper, "I'm artistic." But here's the thing. He hadn't actually read most of those books, and those beautiful cameras? He'd never even loaded film into them. His things weren't reflecting his life. They were basically a costume hiding his insecurity. He was stuck in this exhausting cycle. Buy something, feel a quick burst of joy, then watch that feeling evaporate. The new thing would just become normal, another piece of clutter. Soon he'd be hunting for the next purchase to get that temporary high again. Picture a hamster on a wheel, running faster and faster, but never actually getting anywhere. But why? Why do we all fall into this trap? Sasaki explains that our brains are literally wired for it. We're running on hardware that's 50,000 years old. Our ancestors needed to notice changes to survive. That rustle in the bushes, new fruit on a tree. We're built to adapt to things. That brand new dress is thrilling the first time you wear it. By the 10th time, it's just a dress. The excitement vanishes. Our brain stops registering it as new and exciting. This is the sneaky trap of materialism. The joy of getting something new is always fleeting. No matter how much we accumulate, we'll always adapt to it and eventually get bored. We end up unhappy, not because we don't have enough, but because the very things we thought would bring happiness have lost their magic. And it goes even deeper. Sasaki realized that we, as social creatures, have this intense need to feel worthy. We need to know we have value in other people's eyes. In ancient times, your value was obvious. You were a skilled hunter, a wise elder, a caring parent. But in our complex modern world, how do we signal our worth? Through things. A luxury watch isn't just about telling time. It's broadcasting, "I'm successful." A designer handbag isn't just for carrying stuff. It's announcing, "I have taste." Sasaki was doing this with literally everything he owned. His possessions had become his identity. But the more he relied on things to define him, the more he lost touch with who he actually was. He was spending all his time and energy managing, cleaning, and stressing about his possessions. The things that were supposed to serve him had become his masters. As he so perfectly describes it, the things you own end up owning you. This was his old reality, dragging himself home from work exhausted, cracking open a beer to numb that dissatisfaction, pinching the fat around his stomach, scrolling through social media, and feeling that sharp pang of jealousy with every post. He was completely stuck. The shift for Sasaki started with one simple, radical idea: minimalism. Now, when we hear that word, we might imagine some monk living in a bare cell. But that's not what he's talking about. He defines a minimalist as simply a person who knows what is truly essential for them. It's not some competition to see who can own the least. It's about consciously deciding to eliminate the excess so you can focus on what actually matters. It's a method, not a destination. And the whole point of this method is finding happiness. But how do you even start when every object feels like part of your identity, filled with memories or representing money you've spent? How do you let go? This is where Sasaki's journey gets incredibly practical and wise. He realized that discarding things is actually a skill. You don't just wake up one day as a minimalist, just like you don't wake up fluent in a new language. You have to practice. He started small. He began with obvious junk: expired food in the fridge, broken appliances, clothes with holes. This built momentum. He was literally building his discarding muscle. Then he moved to a simple but powerful rule: if you haven't used it in a year, let it go. That jacket buried in the back of your closet for 3 winters? You probably don't need it. Those hobby supplies for a project you were going to start someday? He realized someday never actually comes. By releasing the idea of someday, he was freeing himself to live in the right now. But what about sentimental stuff? The letters from friends, souvenirs from memorable trips, drawings from your little sibling. This is often the toughest part. Sasaki came up with a beautiful solution. He photographed them. He realized throwing away an object isn't the same as throwing away a memory. The memory lives inside you. By taking a picture, he could honor the object and what it represented while releasing himself from the burden of storing it. He took thousands of photos, and here's what he discovered. He almost never looked at them. The simple act of photographing them was enough to let go. In fact, the memories he could recall without needing an object were the ones that truly mattered. As he went deeper, he started asking tougher questions about his possessions. He'd hold an item and ask, "Am I keeping this because I genuinely love and use it, or am I keeping it for appearances?" This simple question was like a wrecking ball to his old identity. Those unread philosophy books? For appearance. The expensive, uncomfortable clothes? For appearance. He was slowly, deliberately dismantling the false self he'd built out of stuff. Perhaps his most powerful tool was this question: if I lost this, would I buy it again? Just think about that for a second. If your house burned down and you lost everything, what are the few things you'd immediately go out and replace? That list is probably incredibly short. Those are your true essentials. Everything else is just stuff. As the mountains of things began shrinking, something amazing started happening. His apartment began feeling lighter, more open, and so did he. He describes 12 profound ways his life transformed, and this is where the real magic of minimalism reveals itself. First, he found he had so much more time. Think about it. All the time we spend shopping for things we don't need. The time spent cleaning and organizing them. The time spent searching for our keys or wallet in a cluttered space. The time spent working a job we might not even like, just to pay for all those things. Sasaki estimates he can now pack up and move his entire apartment in 30 minutes. He gained hours every week, hours he could now devote to things that actually brought him joy. Second, he experienced genuine freedom. His possessions had been like anchors weighing him down. He had to live in a certain kind of apartment to fit all his stuff. He had to earn a certain income to maintain it all. By letting go, he cut those ropes. He realized his minimum living costs were incredibly low. He could live happily on far less money than he'd thought, which meant he didn't have to be a slave to his job. He had the freedom to choose his work, to travel, to move, to live on his own terms. Third, and this might be the most powerful change, he stopped comparing himself to others. That relentless cycle of comparison is fueled by material possessions. We compare our car to our neighbor's car, our phone to our friend's phone, our clothes to a celebrity's wardrobe. It's a game with no finish line. There will always be someone with something bigger, better, or newer. But when Sasaki stepped out of that game, he was free. He no longer felt that pang of envy or inadequacy. His focus shifted from what others had to what he was doing, from the outside world to his inner world. He discovered that experiences, unlike objects, are much harder to compare. A trip you take with a friend is uniquely yours. The joy from that memory doesn't fade, and you can't measure it against someone else's vacation. By choosing experiences over things, he found a more sustainable and personal form of happiness. He also stopped worrying about what others thought of him. When your identity is no longer tied to your clothes or collections, you stop being so self-conscious. He tells this story about Steve Jobs, who famously wore the same black turtleneck, jeans, and sneakers every single day. Do you think Steve Jobs walked into a fancy store worrying about what people thought of his outfit? Of course not. He had way more important things to think about. By simplifying his own wardrobe, Sasaki felt similar liberation. He was free to just be himself. With all these changes came this newfound ability to focus. Sasaki describes our possessions as creating a silent to-do list. Every object in our field of vision sends a quiet message. The unread book whispers, "You should read me." The dirty dish says, "You need to wash me." The neglected hobby item sighs, "You've failed me." When you're surrounded by clutter, your brain is processing thousands of these tiny, draining messages all day long. No wonder we feel overwhelmed and unmotivated. But when he cleared his space, he cleared his mind. The silent noise stopped. He could finally concentrate on what was truly important, whether that was his work, his writing, or simply being present in the moment. This led to being more engaged with the world. The old Sasaki was a self-described introvert, paralyzed by fear of failure and what others might think. But the new, minimalist Sasaki, with more time, freedom, and confidence, started trying new things. He took up scuba diving, started meditating, and even wrote this book, something his old self would have been too terrified to attempt. He learned that the regret from not doing something is far more painful than the regret from trying and failing. With nothing to lose, he had the courage to take risks. He also became healthier. He noticed that most minimalists he met were slim, and he himself dropped about 22 pounds. He believes it's because when you reduce the stress and clutter in your life, you have fewer reasons to turn to food or alcohol for comfort. You become more in tune with your body's actual needs, rather than eating out of boredom or anxiety. And a clutter-free home is also a safer home. During an earthquake, our cherished possessions can become dangerous projectiles. By having less, he felt a deep sense of security. His relationships with people became deeper. With less time spent managing things, he had more time for the people in his life. He wasn't distracted. He could be fully present in conversations. He realized our homes can either be warehouses for stuff or sanctuaries for connection. By choosing the latter, his relationships flourished. He learned that the secret to a happy life, confirmed by countless studies, isn't wealth or success, but the quality of our relationships. And finally, he learned to savor the present moment and feel true gratitude. When he was constantly chasing the next thing, he was always living in the future. "I'll be happy when I get that." Or he was stuck in the past, holding on to objects that reminded him of who he used to be. By discarding things for the past and future, he was left with only one thing: the now. And in the now, he discovered gratitude. When his apartment was overflowing, he never took time to appreciate anything. But when he was left with only a few essential items, he began feeling profound gratitude for each one: for his bed that allowed him to rest, for his cup that held his tea, for the roof over his head. Gratitude, he realized, is the ultimate antidote to the boredom of getting used to things. It allows you to see the miracle in the mundane. This all builds to the final beautiful lesson of the book. Sasaki explores the science of happiness and points to a groundbreaking finding. Our happiness is determined 50% by our genetics, 40% by our intentional actions, and only 10% by our life circumstances. Think about that. Only 10%. Our job, our income, our marital status, whether we live in a mansion or a tiny apartment, all of that only accounts for a tiny fraction of our happiness. Why? Because we get used to it. Winning the lottery brings a huge spike in joy, but a year later, most winners report being about as happy as they were before. The real power lies in that 40%, our daily actions. Happiness isn't a destination you arrive at. You don't become happy once you get married or buy a house. Happiness is something you feel, moment to moment, and it's generated by what you do. For Fumio Sasaki, minimalism was the key that unlocked that 40%. By saying goodbye to his things, he created the time, freedom, focus, and gratitude needed to fill his daily life with actions that brought him real, sustainable joy. He stopped trying to become happy and simply started feeling happy, right here, right now. He found that the most important thing in life isn't a thing at all. It's the person right in front of you. It's the experience of this very moment. It's the simple, profound joy of just being alive. As we step back and look at the message of Goodbye Things, it's clear this is so much more than a book about decluttering. It's a quiet rebellion against a culture constantly screaming at us that we're not enough. Every advertisement, every social media feed, is a subtle reminder of what we lack. We're told our value lies in what we own, what we achieve, and how we look. It's an exhausting and unwinnable game. Fumio Sasaki offers us a way out. He gives us permission to stop playing. His story is powerful because he's not some enlightened guru speaking from a mountaintop. He's an ordinary person who felt the same pressures, insecurities, and dissatisfactions we all do. He shows us that the path to a happier, more meaningful life doesn't require becoming someone else. It requires shedding the things preventing us from being ourselves. What strikes me most is how this ancient wisdom, rooted in Zen philosophy, is more relevant today than ever, especially for young people navigating the world. You're living in an age of infinite choice and constant distraction. The pressure to build the perfect image, to accumulate the right things, is immense. This book is a powerful reminder that true confidence and originality don't come from the outside in. They come from the inside out. When you strip away the non-essential, you don't lose your individuality, you find it. So how can you start applying this in your own life right now? It doesn't have to be some dramatic purge. It can start small. Here are a few simple actions inspired by Sasaki's journey. First, try the 1-year rule. Sometime this week, go to your closet or drawers and find just one item of clothing you haven't worn in the last year. Don't overthink it. Just pick one thing, thank it for its service, and let it go. Put it in a donation bag. Notice how that feels. It's a small act of liberation. Second, practice the art of digital memory. Find one physical keepsake you're holding on to out of sentimentality, maybe an old concert ticket, a photo, or a letter. Instead of letting it take up physical space, take a beautiful, clear photograph of it. Create a digital album for these memories. Then see if you can let the physical object go. You'll find that the memory isn't in the paper, it's in you. And third, cultivate a moment of gratitude. The next time you use a simple, everyday object you enjoy, maybe your favorite pair of headphones, a comfortable hoodie, or the pen you love to write with, Just pause for 3 seconds. Acknowledge it. Feel a tiny spark of appreciation for the role it plays in your life. This small habit, as Sasaki discovered, can fundamentally change your relationship with the world around you. That was the book summary of Goodbye Things by Fumio Sasaki. We've explored the core of his message today, but a summary is like looking at a photograph of a beautiful landscape. It can show you the view, but it can't replace the feeling of the sun on your skin and the wind in your hair. The real transformation happens when you experience the book for yourself. It's in the quiet moments when one of Sasaki's simple, honest reflections connects with a part of you that you didn't even know was feeling weighed down. This summary is your map to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a feeling of curiosity or a flicker of hope, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely help you feel lighter, freer, and happier in your daily life. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing and learning together.